With ABC Seamless, you can make your home more beautiful on the outside and save money too. As an energy-conscious consumer, I fully endorse ABC Seamless siding. Call today. They will show you how cost-effective ABC Seamless really is.
This is CNN.
Live from the world's financial capital, New York City, this is Moneyline with Lou Dobbs.
Good evening. I'm Bill Hartley. Lou Dobbs is on assignment in Tokyo. The president tonight is fighting the flu and the Japanese government. His health is fine. Trade negotiations, however, are described as tough. President Bush fainted at a state dinner last night. His doctors blamed the common flu. Earlier, the president and the Japanese prime minister agreed to try to improve the world economy, but they may still be worlds apart on improving trade between the two countries. Japanese automakers agreed to boost imports of American-made cars and increase imports of U.S.-made parts, but not as much as the automakers and the Bush administration want. Trade negotiations continue. Moneyline's Lou Dobbs joins me now from Tokyo with the latest on the president's health and the status of trade talks. Lou, good evening, or good morning in your case.
Good morning, Bill. Here in Tokyo, the meetings have begun between the U.S. business delegation accompanying the president and now by Treasury Secretary Nicholas Brady, and of course led the business delegation by Commerce Secretary Mosbacher. I've just left the first round of those meetings this morning. That the concern for the president's health subduing, I think, considerably some of the exchange, even though both Secretary Mosbacher and Secretary Brady reassured those business leaders and their Japanese hosts that the president is coming along, or as Secretary Mosbacher said, doing just fine. The president, I think, as you are now aware, will not be resuming his full schedule today. Secretary Mosbacher saying that he will decide exactly what events to participate in. At this point, we do believe he will be going to his press conference scheduled for this afternoon later in Tokyo. Now, this first morning's meeting between U.S. and Japanese business delegations getting off to something of a rocky start. Secretary Mosbacher reiterated the U.S. government's position that something must be done about that trade imbalance, that $41 billion deficit with Japan, and it must be done now. Treasury Secretary Nicholas Brady followed up, reiterated much the same point. Now, the head of the Keidan Ran, the association of top businesses here in Japan, the leader of the Keidan Ran, responded by saying that the Japanese market and economy is substantially open. The tone moving to the confrontational, even in these informal meetings between the Japanese and U.S. business delegations. So that's where we are. No agreement apparently in sight.
Lou, will the president's absence from some of these meetings play a major factor, do you think, in any lack of agreement?
Well, it's unclear as to what the effect will be, but as I say this morning, concern for the president's health certainly dampened, added a note that was less than positive to the meeting. There is a wide division between how the Japanese and the United States see free world trade. The United States saying that the Japanese system is far from open, and the Japanese maintaining throughout each session that their markets and economy are indeed open.
Lou, one final quick question. So often in the past, America has signed trade deals with the Japanese, assuming that X, Y, and Z were going to happen, and then later on finding, well, no, the Japanese actually had a different idea, and this isn't going to happen. Is there any indication that what has been agreed to before is in this, or is it firm, solid, down there in black and white?
Well, as I say, there is no agreement at this point. That will come later today if indeed agreements are to be reached in substance. Red Polling, the chairman of Ford Motor today, reiterating that this $41 billion budget deficit, trade deficit rather, has to be reduced and has to be reduced over the next 5 years. It was also interesting that Secretary Brady said he does not, if I may paraphrase the secretary, saying he doesn't really care why that trade deficit exists. It's got to be redressed and put in balance. Now, the president has succeeded in this trip in positioning himself as the world's preeminent advocate of free world trade. And this delegation of businessmen as well as Commerce and Treasury officials are reiterating over and over again that Japan is the exception to the definition of open trade in a world trading system.
All right, Lou, thank you very much. And a bit later, we will have Lou's full interview with Secretary of the Treasury, Nicholas Brady, that was taped earlier. World financial markets shuddered briefly when the president collapsed. Gold prices surged, bonds and the dollar fell. Stocks plunged in London and opened lower in New York. The Dow Industrials fell by 23 points, then gained all that back and then some, and then lost it all, finally closing less than 1 point lower. Oil prices today dropped to an 18-month low. Light sweet crude down another 82 cents a barrel to $17.87. The outlook calls for even lower prices. Demand is off, supply is high. Terry Keenan reports from New York.
Energy traders jumped to sell oil as prices plunged Wednesday. What's been a 4-day slide has taken more than $1.50 off a barrel of oil. The warm weather and cold economies caused by the recession in the United States and parts of Europe come at a time when OPEC production is at a 20-year high.
OPEC cannot sit back and wait either for colder weather or an expansion in the world economic sphere. They must come up with a game plan, a production quota that's realistic and respected.
Saudi Arabia convinced other OPEC members to keep production high at about 24 million barrels a day when the cartel met last fall. World oil prices were already sliding. Now the benchmark U.S. crude is down about 25% from its October high, and that's without much production from two key members, Kuwait and Iraq.
Some way, somehow, in the next 60 to 180 days, there will be Iraqi crude hitting the market. Now the question is, of course, how much and where?
Iraqi officials are now in Vienna trying to persuade the United Nations to drop its Gulf War embargo. Before that, Iraq produced about 2.5 million barrels a day. Meanwhile, Kuwait's output is running close to 600,000 barrels a day and rising. But it and other OPEC members cannot afford to have oil trading at these prices for long. The Saudis can, but it could mean a long and difficult meeting when OPEC's price monitoring committee meets in Geneva early next month. Terry Keenan, CNN Business News, New York.
And coming up, an interview with Treasury Secretary Nicholas Brady. His views on trade, interest rates, and the world economy. That's next on Moneyline.
A true driver's car in a luxury coupe? Sounds to me like you're talking import.
The Eldorado Touring Coupe by Cadillac. In the fraction of a second it takes to depress the accelerator, you'll acquaint yourself with the surge of its V8, the adaptability of its speed-sensitive suspension, and reacquaint yourself with the pleasures of driving. The 1992 Cadillac Eldorado Touring Coupe is here, and there's never been a car like it.
Dan Larson knows a secluded course where the holes are challenging, but the fees aren't. Now, where do you suppose he'd rent a car? Budget, where every rental passes 25 quality checks and price is not a handicap. The smart money is on Budget. Now at Budget, get an economy car with unlimited mileage for just $99 a week, $24.99 each additional day. The smart money is on Budget.
Nighttime backache? Try Momentum Muscular Backache Formula. Momentum has extra medicine to help relieve your backaches so you can sleep.
My back feels great, and I slept like a log.
Momentum Muscular Backache Formula.
Introducing new Rice-A-Roni